Welcome back to The Real Deal with Empire, where we don't just talk about transactions, we talk about transformation. I'm your host, Ali Fawaz, bringing you expert insights and real conversations that actually empower you to navigate the complex waters of real estate with confidence. You can catch us on Spotify, on YouTube, and on Apple Podcasts. So please like, subscribe, and even leave us a review. Now, when you hear title insurance, you probably wonder, what does that really mean? And do I really need it? So today we're diving into why title insurance is not just important, but absolutely essential for protecting your biggest investment, your home. And we're going to do it in a way that's fun, engaging, and packed with all kinds of valuable insights. Joining me today is someone who knows the ins and outs of title insurance like no other, Cindy Immonen, who is the Vice President and Senior Agency Representative for Fidelity National Financial. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ali. I appreciate being here.
Of course.
Yes.
We appreciate you being here. So,
and I love talking about title insurance.
Good. Then you're the right person to have here.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep this lighthearted and fun and engaging. And I know that you're a wealth of knowledge. So we're going to try to tap into whatever we can here today.
That sounds great.
Great. So Cindy, for those who might not be familiar with it, can you break down what title insurance is and why it's actually a critical step in the real estate transaction process?
Yeah. So title insurance is very, very important when you are selling and buying real estate. It is ensuring the fact that the person signing the warranty deed is telling you, the buyer, that the title insurance is clear. And if it's not clear, such as an easement, he has or she has informed you of it. And you, as the buyer, are A-okay with it. So title insurance is important to a seller because they're signing their name on the warranty deed. That warranty deed comes with warranties to the buyer. So they're receiving money from the buyer, they're giving a deed to the buyer, and then it is insured. Now, what do we mean by insurance? So let's talk about our car insurance. We're driving to work one day or to the store, and somebody pulls out in front of us and bam, our car is damaged. Sad day, right? So you have one of two choices. You can either sue the person that caused you damage, which isn't fun, going to court and trying to sue and possibly not getting any of the money. And you've just even spent more money trying to sue them for some money. Or you can call the insurance company. In fact, you might not even have to call today. You just get online, get on a fancy app, and file a claim. And then after the process, your car is repaired. Hopefully not totaled out, but repaired, right? Let's say it's just a simple fender bender and they fluff and buff the fender for you. Same kind of concept with title insurance. You as the buyer don't know if you should be trusting that seller's signature. Mm-hmm. You're not sure, right? Are they telling you, the buyer, all of the truthful information? You're not sure. The seller signing a warranty deed and getting the buyer to accept it is a big deal. You're taking the money from this buyer. You don't want this buyer suing you if something is not known to you about the property. And so you then purchase, as a seller, the title insurance and provide it to the buyer. So God forbid somebody comes knocking on the door and says, I have interest in this property. I have interest in the last 10 feet of your property. I'm owed money for the roof or the windows. That buyer then doesn't sue the seller. That buyer then calls the title insurance underwriter and files a claim, very similar as if our car was damaged. Mm-hmm. So it's very important in a transaction, a real estate transaction, to have title insurance because you have that protection. As a buyer, you have that protection as a seller.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I think most people assume that once they buy a home, that they own it outright, right?
Yep.
But there are those hidden risks.
There is a lot of hidden risks.
Right. And I guess what are some of the common title issues that might come up after somebody closes?
So after a closing happens, sometimes a prior owner's mortgage didn't get paid off. And that mortgage company comes along to foreclose, enforce their mortgage. So now you've got a mortgage company knocking on your door. Hi, we're owed the money. And the buyer, the new owner of the land, says, that's not my debt. That's not my debt to pay to you. Well, that mortgage encumbered the land. Okay? So they still have every right to take that ownership away from that property owner. And mortgage companies have won. They will then foreclose on that debt and sell it to somebody else. And then now that buyer is out the money that they paid the seller. Yes, they can then take the seller to court, as I talked about. It's a tedious process. It's an expensive process, but it can be done. The best thing to do, again, is to have title insurance. Make sure that everything is cleared up before closing. Title insurance is a little different than our car, health, life, travel insurance. All of those are a risk assumption. Those insurance companies assume the car is going to be in an accident. Homeowners assumes the tree is going to fall on the house. Health insurance, we assume you're going to get sick and go to the doctors. In title insurance, the process before closing, the reason that it does take 30 to 45 days before you can have that transaction of exchanging money for a deed is because the title insurance company takes a deep dive look at all the public records. They look under all the public record rocks, as I say, and see if there's any debt or problems lingering out there. Mm-hmm. And they prepare a title commitment, and they prepare on that title commitment a page of requirements that must be met. And then they also prepare a page of exceptions. And those are items that we're not going to insure the buyer for, but we are, quote unquote, informing the buyer of them. Hopefully they take a look at that page before closing and they are comfortable with it. It's the disclosure to the buyer of those outstanding issues. So at the time of commitment, if the current property owner has a prior mortgage that was not discharged, if the prior seller property owner's home equity was not discharged, that will show up of record and needs to be dealt with and cleaned up. So we are considered a risk elimination. We try to reduce as much risk as possible before the closing happens.
Okay, that makes sense. And that kind of goes into the next question I had, which I think you may have answered it, right? Where it's like, how does title insurance differ from the typical auto insurance or homeowners insurance? So that's really what distinguishes the two.
Very much so.
And I think that's where I think some buyers might wonder, well, if title company did such a thorough, wonderful job before closing, then why is the insurance even necessary afterward?
Right. Well, it still is necessary because we can only look under the public record rocks. We can only see so much out there. And we don't know about the secret handshakes. The property owner is supposed to tell us if we didn't find everything. The document is called an owner's affidavit. It is signed at the closing table where we ask the property owner, are you of the age of 18? Does anybody cross your property? Does anybody live in the property or on the property? Have you granted access to somebody else? So we ask a lot of questions at the closing table of the property owner because we always cannot find all the issues that can affect the ownership of the real estate. And that is because us humans love to make handshake agreements. Hey, Ali, pay me $200 a month. You can use that field and plow and make some hay. And that agreement does not get drafted. It does not get recorded at the public records. And no one is the wisest. And so when I sell the property, Ali still comes and plows the fields. And me as, a new buyer, maybe he wanted to plow the fields and make hay and make some money off of the hay. So that's why it's very important to still get title insurance, because there are things that are not disclosed to us before the closing, at the closing table. There are still hidden risks, and that's why you want to have insurance.
Yeah, that sounds like reason enough. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about title insurance that you hear from buyers or even from real estate professionals?
I hear, oh, you guys do all that work, but there never is a claim. We always hear that we do such great work before closing, eliminating the risks, that there is not a claim.
That's great, isn't it?
It is great to hear that. However, I would say it's not necessarily true.
Good.
Claims do arise. And again, there's misconceptions of documents that have been signed in the past and recorded. People read them and understand them differently. And there's mistakes that are made. And again, not everything is recorded a public record. So there really are claims. My partner and I, Jeremy, handle the state of Michigan, and we probably get notified of about 5 to 10 claims on a weekly basis just for the state of Michigan. And we are only one of 10 underwriters here in the state of Michigan. So there are claims out there. There are misunderstandings of where the property line is, who owns what a lot of times because surveys weren't done. There are misunderstandings if, we can use this land or walk on the land, or again, plowing the fields. So that is why I would tell anybody and everybody that they always need to get title insurance.
So I definitely hear the property line one a lot.
Yes.
Right. That's probably one of the most famous arguments that you might have with a neighbor.
Yeah.
But can you walk us through what title insurance actually covers, or maybe really share a real life example of a time when it saved somebody from a major headache that it could have caused them?
Yeah. So I got a phone call from a title agent a couple weeks ago, and one of his really good friends bought 10 acres in mid-Michigan. It's still a rural area. It's 10 acres of land. There's no house on it. I believe the buyers use it for hunting because it's wooded. It wasn't really farmland, but wooded land. And he went up there maybe once or twice a year because, again, he only hunted that often. Well, a neighbor called and said, we think somebody's camping on your property, so you should probably come and investigate. So he went up there, and sure enough, there was somebody camping on the property that was not supposed to be. He never gave permission. So he told them that they had to leave. But what he noticed was 2 acres of the 10 acres, the trees had been clear-cutted.
Oh.
Like trees, gone.
Wow.
And there were signs all over the place that the Department of Insurance of Michigan was clear-cutting the 2 acres of land. So the person was very confused why the DNR would do that, why the DNR would have never notified him. I mean, clear-cutting 2 acres of trees just doesn't happen in one day. It I would think it takes a good month at least to clear cut some trees because it's a pretty heavy wooded area. And so he called the DNR, got some information. The DNR believes that they own the 2 acres. And the title company that insured this land believes that the property owner really owns the property. And so it's going to end up probably going into litigation as to who owns this 2 acres of land.
Wow.
Let alone the cost of the 10 acres of lumber that person lost. And again, battling the state of Michigan is not cheap.
I'm sure it's not. So you're basically lifting that burden off of the homeowner and taking that burden and that responsibility off of them and resolving.
Exactly. We come to the table with the attorneys. So the property owner does not have to hire an attorney. We come to the table with an attorney. So to me, it's a very valuable thing to have for the cost of the money of title insurance.
Yeah. And so every industry has change and it's always evolving and the landscape changes as well. Title insurance is no different.
Yes.
And we've seen some shifts in the industry.
Yes, there has been.
Fannie Mae's attempt at a title waiver program, for example.
Yes, very scary.
What's your take on that particular change?
Very scary. So we have an organization called the American Land Title Association, and they have been doing their job up in Washington to inform Fannie and Freddie why they should not have the title waiver program. That it really does put the lenders at risk for not having insurance. There are some areas in the United States, not in Michigan, that some lenders believe that all they need is an attorney's opinion. An attorney's opinion of the past history of property ownership instead of getting insurance. So when you get title insurance, yes, we look at the whole past of the chain of title. We look at the risk of insuring it. We put some requirements and then we insure it. With the title waiver program, they're going to rely on a local attorney to review the chain of title in the past and give an opinion. It's good to go. And then the lender will go ahead and close on the loan without insurance. The problem is going to be is when that lender needs to enforce the mortgage and go through a foreclosure process and find out that there is an issue, such as there's no access to the land, or there's a property line dispute, or somebody else has ownership in the property. Maybe that attorney's opinion was not so valid, or maybe there was a mistake done in the search that the attorney didn't see. There's no insurance. The lender then cannot foreclose on that mortgage, cannot enforce that mortgage, and now the lender is out the money of that debt.
To me, just hearing this tells me there's so many gaps being left open if you go down that approach.
Yeah.
Are they qualified enough to do their own investigating?
Yeah.
And then when they miss something, because they're going to miss something.
There's going to be misses. Yes.
They're not protecting you. And now you're left out there to.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So Fannie and Freddie, it's their interest in the property. It's the lender's interest in the property. So we always still will encourage a buyer and a seller to get what's called as an owner's policy. So there is 2 policies in a transaction. There's a policy insuring the lender for the mortgage, and then there's the owner's policy insuring the owner. So even if that lender goes down the path of saying, we're going to do the title waiver program, or we're going to do just the attorney's opinion letter system, I would still, as a real estate professional, tell your buyer and your sellers that they need to have an owner's policy.
Yep. That makes total sense to me.
Yes.
With the rise in real estate fraud and cyber threats, how are title companies adapting to protecting buyers from those type of scams?
Yeah. So those type of scams affect buyers. They affect the sellers and they affect the title companies. And so this type of scam is coming through our industry in 3 different ways. So let's talk about how a buyer can be affected. And this affects most of the time our first-time buyers. I call it the buyer that is buying a home because now they have a degree and they're getting their first home, or they've purchased the diamond, and that would be the wedding bells, and they're purchasing a home. So there's really actually six D's in real estate and title, and we'll go through those over our conversation. But the first 2, again, is you've got a diploma. Now you're going to buy a home for the first time. You've given a diamond, and you're going to buy a home for the first time. So scams with first-time home buyers. I strongly suggest to any real estate broker and any real estate agent and real estate professional to go through real estate fraud and cyber training once a year, if not every 6 months. I offer this class as a CE credit as well. And this goes through all the different types of frauds that are going on in our industry. So when we talk about buyers and their scams, what happens sometimes is that the fraudster is living among the emails. They're living either in the real estate agent's email, the loan officer's email, or possibly even their own email. Okay? A lot of people don't put a lot of free securities that should be turned on inside their free email, such as their Gmail account or their Yahoo account. And so the fraudsters get in there. You don't know that the fraudsters are looking at all your emails. And then the buyer receives an email that looks and feels so real that they believe it. And so this email comes to them from the real estate agent or from the title company. Again, it's a fake fraud email, but it looks very, very real. In fact, AI can help the fraudsters with making their email so great.
There's AI.
There's AI in the bad way. There's AI in the good way, though. But there is AI in the bad way that is helping these fraudsters create emails that we all believe are real. So the email comes to the buyer, say a week or 2 before closing, and it tells the buyer to wire the money to ABC Title Company in some state. And so the buyers follow this email. They're not wise to the whole process of buying their first home. And maybe the real estate agent didn't tell them about it, or maybe the title company didn't tell them. Or even so, they did tell them. I have had it where a buyer has signed a form with the real estate agent that they will not believe any email that comes to their desk about sending the closing money, and to call the real estate agent, and the real estate agent will get the title company on the phone before wiring any email. The buyers forget this and they run to the bank because they want their home, first time home, so excited, emotions are flowing, and they go and they wire their $7,000 that they've saved over 3 years for their first time home. And because it's a week or 2 weeks before the closing, no one's of the wisest. The real estate agent is not to that point yet. A real estate agent is not going to tell the buyers to wire their money until like a day or 2 before closing. The title company is not going to tell a buyer to wire the money until a day or 2 before closing. So no one's communicating this to the buyers yet. So a week or 2 goes by. Fraudsters already have their money, has already gone and spent it, in fact. And so then the title company and the real estate agent says to the buyers, you've got to wire your money now. And they say, oh, well, we did. And the money is gone. And now there's no closing. Now there's no more money that the buyers have. And everyone is very heartbroken. So education is what we believe in. It's very hard to protect the buyers. We talk with title companies about utilizing some vendors such as Closing Lock or Certified ID to communicate the wire instructions between the title company and the buyer. And we, again, educate real estate agents to not be in the middle of that communication to try and minimize it. But that's how buyers get scammed out, especially the first-time home buyers. It's the highest in that area.
How prominent is this of an issue?
We hear it at least about once a month, if not twice a month. Okay. And then sellers' money getting redirected. That's happening still also once or twice a month. And then the payoff of the property owner's mortgage getting redirected, that's happening still about 4 to 5 times a month. So it is still very rampant out there. These fraudsters know our process of buying and selling real estate in the United States, and they know how to infiltrate into the emails and become part of that conversation, and they know the right timing to strike.
They've gotten pretty efficient at this thing.
They have gotten very efficient. It's very crazy.
What about on the commercial side? Commercial real estate transactions can be especially vulnerable to fraud, right?
Yes.
What should an investor and business owner be on the lookout for?
Yes. So commercial real estate is subject, again, still to the wire fraud issues that I just talked about, be it a commercial buyer, be it a commercial seller. I will tell you that there was so much fraud in the commercial real estate arena that Fannie and Freddie have now very strict rules on funding one of their loans. So now the title agency is told that they cannot handle the money for a commercial transaction. Now the funds have to be handled by a title underwriter. And when that happens, there are fees, of course, costs, because now you're injecting a whole nother team into the transaction. And these fees are not cheap, a few thousand. And so it's a shock to the title agency because they're used to funding their own loan. You know, the lender sends the money to the agency, the title agency, and then the title agency sends the money to the buyers and sellers and pays off the mortgages. Yep. So now with this new law, and this is within the last few months that this has come down, and it's all because of fraud in the commercial real estate world and lending world. A lot of people are not happy about it. Some people think that it's the title underwriters that wanted this. We did not want this. It's created that much more work on our end. We had to create a whole department to handle this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's why it costs money.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And so we're almost doing double insurance for that lender in the commercial world.
Insurance for the insurance.
Exactly. It's not fun. And everyone's shocked about it, but it's all because of fraud.
When we think about the future trends, looking ahead, how do you see technology actually shaping or reshaping the industry itself?
Yeah.
Are there any trends that you're seeing, or is it changing the way we transact?
Right. There are some trends that are coming into our industry. There will be 2 of them. AI for sure, as well as the change in the notarization world. So with AI, there is technology within the software systems that are going to be helping the title insurance agent in the processing of a file to minimize the work that a human has to do. Now, when I say that, a lot of times people say, oh, now I'm going to be out of job. Well, you're not. That person still can do another job within the title insurance agency. The amount of workers in our workforce has decreased. And even though the housing industry here in Michigan, and nationally is down in the sense of volume, how many closings are happening, we are still short workers. So thank God in some sense it's down because we don't have enough talented people in the title insurance arena to support all of the work that needs to be done. So AI is coming in to help with some of those software functions. And the parts that they're helping with is just tedious stuff as well. So that's kind of nice. Take away some of that tedious workload and have me work on some challenging things, right? So AI is one thing that's coming into the trend of title insurance. The other thing, as I talked about, was notarization. Today and in the past, we all come to the closing table. And there's a lot of paper at the closing table, probably 60 to 100 pieces of paper at a closing, right? And all of them have to be wet signed with a real pen. This is a fake pen. This is a digital pen. So your hand is going to hurt after your closing, number one, but that's a lot of trees. That's a lot of toner. It's a lot of ink. And it's time to get to the closing. It's time to get home. And we're all meeting in one place, right? Well, wouldn't it be nice to close your real estate transaction like you do your car loan or your home equity loan in the comfort of your living room? Or after you've done the walkthrough of your new house in that living room? Wouldn't that be nice?
That'd be lovely.
That would be really lovely. And so it's called a remote closing, and they dial in via on the computer. We see each other. We credentialize their ID. We ask questions that only they would know to verify that we're really working with Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and the closing is done virtually. Now, the other way to do this is to still meet at the real estate office and have the real estate agent there, but sign everything on these beautiful computers. This nice little tablet, this nice little Chromebook, and all of us get one of these nice digital pens to sign our signature. And then the documents are emailed to the buyer. The documents are emailed to the seller. The documents are then emailed to the real estate agents. And we're cutting down on paper and toner and time, postage. I mean, the list goes on the amount of time that we're saving by doing an in-person electronic notarization. It's very exciting. I'm still looking forward to that happening. It's going to happen. Yes.
So is it that there are laws in place that require you to have...
No, it already can do it.
Okay.
We can already do it.
Okay.
We already have the laws set here in the state of Michigan to do it. It's the lender embracing it. We already have a group of lenders. It's a small group. I won't lie. It's probably only 7 lenders that are allowing it. But what I say to my title agents throughout the state of Michigan is, hey, let's work on this with your cash transactions. Let's work on this all on your seller side. So you as a real estate agent get to have the seller come into your real estate office, have them remember your real estate name again, and everything is signed right there electronically. And I think that's just a really cool idea. That's where I see the future going, the future trends. I would say anybody of the age of 35 and younger, when you tell them they have to take time off of work and they have to go to the title company or even the real estate company to meet a title representative for a closing, they're like, what? Yeah. Are you kidding? I can't believe it. I mean, think about it. They apply for their loan online. They never meet their loan officer until closing. If the loan officer comes to closing, the only player they know is the real estate agent. So let's get more techie.
From another aspect, if you think about it, especially the younger generation of home buyers, especially the first-time home buyer, right? These are people who have come up in an age where they can order their food and have it delivered or from their computer or from their phone.
Their groceries.
Obviously, there's Amazon. Obviously, your groceries get delivered, so everything can be done on your phone or on your laptop.
Your doctor's appointments now, too.
Right. So it's a natural way to think of things, whereas potentially maybe there's other people who are used to doing things the same way they've always done them, which doesn't always mean that's the right way. It's just what you're used to doing.
Right.
And sometimes those conflict, I think, and that what causes change to happen a little bit slower. But it seems like that sounds like, from based on what you're saying, that the tides are changing.
The tides are changing. I will say that there is a couple lenders in the refinance arena that basically that's how they're closing all their refinances. So again, it's going to appeal to your first-time home buyers. It's going to appeal to your person that's already gone through the process of buying a home and having a mortgage. And they're going to just want to refinance electronically. They're not going to want to go to a closing. And thus, then when they're selling, this is when the other D's come in, when the diapers come and they've got to get a bigger house, or the divorce come and they both need a house. Those people are, they've already gone through the home buying process. So they're going to want to sell electronically. They're going to want to buy electronically. So that's going to be the part. So it is coming. Do I understand that 80-year-old is not going to want to sign electronically? I get it. My father's in his 80s and I take care of a lot of his stuff and have to explain just the map on my car because he doesn't understand why I don't have the paper map, right? So
this internet thing might just be a fad.
It might be a fad, yeah, but it's here to stay. And it's time for real estate to really embrace technology more. It's coming.
It is coming. I'm starting to see these nuanced changes that are happening. Digital is evolving real estate in general.
It is.
It's nice to see.
Yes.
We're going to go into a fun segment now.
Yes.
We call this segment Real or Ridiculous. So, Cindy, what we're going to do is we're going to play a quick game. I'm going to throw out some scenarios, and you can tell us if they're really happening in the title world or if they're just too ridiculous to even believe.
Okay.
Plus, we'd love to hear stories from you that you may have come across through your happenings in the industry.
Sure.
So, let's do this. First one. So, a home buyer purchases a house, only to find out later that someone else had already sold it without the real owner's knowledge.
Yes. This is real.
Wow.
I know. It's a big wow. And I'm here to tell you, we had this exact claim. I think this is just the ultimate scary claim. We had this claim at least 2 years ago. And so what happened was the order came over, title company searched the property, and it was in an LLC's name. And the sellers were Helping Inc. HELPING Inc.
Okay.
The fraudsters did another deed and left the L out and made it HEPING. Okay? The title examiner did not catch it. And so they drafted everything under the new name Helping Inc. The fraudsters were so brave and had dug so deep into this transaction that 2 days prior to closing, they changed the locks on the house because they had a fake deed to show a locksmith.
Yeah.
They showed up at the title company as the seller, had fake IDs, and sold the property to a buyer. Title company accepted the ID, thought everything was fine. And a month goes by. This homeowner was gutting the house. It was a fixer-upper. Was gutting the house, was starting to fix things up. And so he was there, working on the house, and someone came knocking on the door and said, "Hey, why did you change the locks on my house? And why are you doing this in my house?"
That is scary.
So this is what we call is total title failure. The claim was $250,000. And we had to give all that money to the buyer, and he was out of house.
Wow. That really is scary. But to know that you have title insurance to protect you and cover that, at least there's some relief.
Right. They got the money back. They got the money back.
But apparently scammers are very elaborate to go to the point where they're making fake IDs, fake deeds.
Yes.
They will stop at nothing, it sounds like.
I know. I just am so scared that they were so brave that they even came to the title company and signed the documents. It's just very bizarre. But they do it. It's not the only story that I have that they do that.
This is a good one.
Uh-huh.
Title insurance can protect you from ghosts haunting your home.
Right. So I would say that's ridiculous, but I will tell you, it's a very common blog in the month of October, and people have filed claims because the property is haunted. Wow. And they want that interest out of their property.
Oh my goodness.
They really have filed claims on that topic. Now, we have not paid any money out on it, but there could be a good case in the future at some point.
Know.
But yes, this has crossed our desk.
Have you ever seen a title dispute that involved an actual family feud?
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Oh, boy. That sounds like many.
Many. There is many. So we had a claim that came across our desk, and these usually arise right away. Usually a claim does not come across our desk on a piece of property for at least 5 to 7 years sometimes, but when there is a family feud, somebody has passed away, and this takes me to the D number 6, death. In real estate, a piece of property usually is sold because somebody has passed away, sadly enough, and they don't need to live in the house anymore. They might still as a ghost, but not as a real person. So the family has to go to probate sometimes. And when there's a dispute, it becomes a supervised probate here in Michigan. And the judge is the supervising person. And the judge says, this house needs to be sold, or this property needs to be sold for the $250,000 to Mr. Smith. And that is that. And then we are doing the closing. And sometimes the family is still fighting among themselves as to how much each of them get. Sometimes we accept documents that are kind of in the gray area. And by doing so, the family feud is brewing out there that we don't know about. And so then the family files a claim like within the month after closing that, they had interest in the house, that they really should have received the proceeds, or they should have received the actual property. Right. And that can be very difficult as well. So it does happen. That is real. That happens a lot.
What is the strangest or most unexpected thing that you've ever come across when doing title search?
So one of the title searches that I did, the way they put the parties into title. So this is one thing, if you're working with any of your buyers out there, is to make sure that you get one of our one-page documents that talks about how to hold title, and you give it to your buyers and ask them to read it over, and for them to tell you, the real estate professional, how do you want to take title, and then you as the real estate professional to make sure that they do take title that proper way that they want. When I searched this one piece of property, there was 64 people that owned the property, and they all had 1/64th of an interest.
Wow. 1/64th.
Yes.
Okay.
So grandma and grandpa owned a farm, and there was 64 grandchildren.
Big family.
Yes.
It's a lot of splits.
And yes, we had to count to make sure that we had every piece of interest in all 64 people to sign. It was
That must have been fun to do.
not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Has there ever been a case where somebody tried to claim ownership of a property using a totally absurd reason?
Yeah, people will use whatever reason. We had a case that got to the amount of almost $500,000 over in Washtenaw County over a 10-foot by 100-foot piece of land that was covered in weeds. Weeds. It was nothing. It was nothing. But they both neighbors just kept fighting and fighting and fighting and appealing and appealing and appealing. And we finally paid the $550,000 and bowed out, and then they still kept suing each other.
Oh, gosh. And they still kept suing each other.
And they kept suing each other, yeah. And it was over this little tiny piece of land.
It's amazing.
It really is amazing. So hopefully you all get along with your neighbors and are happy and don't have any disputes.
That is wonderful advice. So Cindy, this really has been very insightful, this conversation. Thank you for
Great.
breaking down title insurance in a way that's digestible and easy to understand and makes sense.
Yes.
But before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about Fidelity National Financial?
Yes. My suggestion would be to definitely reach out to Rittenhouse Title and ask your questions. If they are unable to, they definitely know how to reach me. I love to talk about title. I love to train Rittenhouse Title on title. And Ali and I have talked about doing more continuing ed for you all, and that will be fun. And hopefully I get to come back as another guest and talk about other topics.
Absolutely. And I look forward to that.
Yes.
Thank you again, Cindy. And to all of you listeners, if you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share this with anybody, buyers, sellers, investors in real estate. You can watch us on YouTube, listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Until next time, keep making deals and keep transforming lives. Thank you.